Hello and welcome to Promenade Française. Today's topic is French difficult? You might think that French is probably difficult based on the experiences that you've seen from the past couple of videos where I discovered that I was having some problems in the process of learning French. Why am I qualified to talk about this subject? In 2003, I moved to China. I lived in China for 10 years. I learned basic Chinese first on my own, then in a university, and then I actually learned Chinese so well that I was able to pass the entrance exams. I graduated with an undergraduate degree in China law that was completely taught in Chinese. Later, I eventually moved to California and then back to Canada. And then I thought maybe I ought to learn Russian. So I moved to Russia. When learning Russian, I first started with an online tutor. Then I lived in Russia for 2 years. I continued with an online tutor for another year while living in Saudi Arabia and learning Arabic. And then I moved to Belarus, where I studied in a university. Then continued to study online for another year or two, and it looks like I've stopped learning Russian. Partly because it seems that learning French is actually quite difficult. But is it really that difficult? Let's dive a little deeper. I think that there are three ways to look at this question. The first question is technically, is French difficult to learn? And I'm talking about the way that the grammar is structured. Second, is French difficult from the perspective of a method for studying? Do you have a really good method to learn? And third, from the perspective of motivation. So let's start with motivation and difficulty. If we look at something called Fogg's motivation model, Fogg, Fogg's motivation model, you'll see that your action is based on both the difficulty and also how much motivation you have to do something. So if something is too difficult, then you need something called a facilitation trigger. A facilitation trigger basically means you need a method to learn how to do it. You need to break down something that's big and complex into small, manageable parts. And if something is not terribly difficult, but you don't feel very motivated to do it, then you need a spark trigger. So basically, you need something like some fire under your butt to get you going and started doing the effort. On Duolingo, they have something called a streak, where if you come back every single day, they tell you how many days in a row that you've been doing something. And because usually people, they don't want to break the streak, then they have that spark trigger to bring them back and put them inside of that app. Duolingo also has the facilitation trigger where they give you a little piece of something to work on each day. How interesting those steps are in the Duolingo app, like how relevant is the content, how interesting is the content, how likely are you to come back because you are in love with the content, that is debatable. But their ability to create a facilitation trigger and their ability to create a spark trigger is quite strong. If you look at other means for learning French, for example, sometimes people, they go onto Instagram, and on Instagram you have a lot of different teachers who are creating flashcards. I think flashcards are one of the best ways that you can learn French. And also, if you look at modern day Instagram posts, it is a flashcard, and it's a very high information dense flashcard because you have a video, you have somebody actually talking to you, so you can see them or you can see the situation. Also, you can hear them, so you're hearing the pronunciation. Also, they put the text on the screen so you can read. I think from the perspective of facilitation, yeah, an Instagram post is a great way to learn French. The issue is not actually the way that these teachers are presenting those specific words that they are highlighting in their Instagram posts. The problem is that sometimes there isn't any continuity between posts. So it's like a shotgun approach where you're learning this word and that word and this word. And it's like you can't actually get really clear progress and move along the process of learning French. And also the spark trigger is there because you're opening Instagram all the time. And so boom, it's in your feed and then you can see the words. So I think that they got the spark trigger and the facilitation trigger right. And those flashcards, it's a great way to learn French. But what we need to do is create an actual process for carrying the storyline across, following the progress of characters, developing your knowledge as you grow to enjoy following the lives of characters. And so that's why sometimes people, they study French by watching different cartoons or other types of content where you actually have some character driven narrative. So, and that's what I think, that's what I'm trying to create here is I'm trying to develop a process for me personally to learn French. We have our first 500 words that we're trying to learn here, and we have them in a conversation, and we're getting to know characters. Also, I have the audio. I've recorded the audio with a tutor, so we have the French audio. And that's the whole idea behind the concept of Promenade Française. It's to listen to these conversations in French while I'm walking. But I feel like I need to get to the next level. The weekly challenge, it was like way too difficult. So how do we break that down? So now I'm talking about a facilitation trigger. Take the process of learning French and break it down into something more simple, meaning that in addition to the book, in addition to the audio files, in addition to the broad weekly challenge, I need to have more tools to help me learn each sentence, each word. What am I going to do to upload those ideas into my brain? That's what I'm focusing on right now, developing some flashcard type tools in order to upload that information into my brain so I can learn French more quickly. Finally, I want to talk about, is French difficult from a technical perspective?